Good morning. Thanks for joining us. My name's Deborah. I'm a naturopath and a massage therapist, and I have a business called Nourish. It's based in Petone, and with me today is Friederike, who is a naturopath, works with herbal medicine and other modalities, and also offers functional testing, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a while. The focus for our conversation today is about identifying and treating the cause. So as naturopaths, what we try and do is, rather than, if you come in as a client, rather than actually treating your illness or your dis-ease, we look at finding what's underlying it and what's causing it. So we're looking at the underlying causes of illness, and our goal really is to remove any barriers that you might have that are preventing you from being well. So the idea today is to just kind of talk a little bit about what they might be and how, as naturopaths, we can address them. So one of the key things that I often get asked is, why do I need all this information? So when my patients come to see me, I do quite a lot of comprehensive screening questionnaires, discussions, and various other screening tools. And, there's a lot of information that we get. We have to sit down afterwards or at some point during the consult and try and work out where we're going to go with it. And there's lots of things that we can utilise in our clinics, and you'll find that no two naturopaths work the same way. So what we're going to do today is, Friederike works very differently than I do, so it's really going to be really interesting for her to talk about some of the functional testing that she does, and I can talk a little bit about the screening tools that I use. So welcome, Friederike. Thanks for joining me today. It's lovely to have you here. For you, what's the importance of finding that underlying cause? What's your key driving factor in looking for the root cause of illness?
So yeah, the causes and the obstacles are sometimes not as easy to identify because people can come in with low energy, but low energy, can that be adrenal fatigue? Can that be the mitochondria which is not working? Have they got some immune issues or stress, underlying stress, which they're not actually aware of, even immune inflammation issues? So where do you start, and how do you identify where you need to help this person to feel more energetic and be able to live life in its fullest? Or the other example is a good one, is the skin issues like eczema, psoriasis, or any other skin problems. They can come in and they often think it is a food intolerance, but it may not be a food intolerance at all. It may just be that their microbiome in their gut is not in order, or even on the skin, or even that they have heavy metals, heavy toxins in their system and can't detoxify them very well, or it can be even some nutrition deficiencies. So that's why I came to the conclusion to do more and more integrated functional testing. There's a lot available nowadays for us, which is fabulous. They are a little bit pricey, some of them, but definitely worthwhile, because when we compare it to our car we send every year to a round of fitness and a service. And I see those functional testing exactly the same, because when you have a car, you have an engine, and the engine has to be in perfect condition, otherwise we can't go on the road and drive well. So for us, the same as in the body is our mitochondria, which is our powerhouse, and the body cannot function at all if the mitochondria doesn't work and produce energy. And a mitochondria sits in every cell, so not necessarily in every person the mitochondria is in good function. So we need to make sure this powerhouse which produces the ATP is working well, because without a mitochondria, we can't produce hormones, we can't think, we can't use our muscles, our bones, our heart, our cardiovascular system. Nothing works without the mitochondria. The same as when you have the car, you have the petrol. Without petrol, the car can't drive, obviously. So what does the mitochondria need? It's blood sugar. Blood sugar comes from glucose. Glucose is from food. So are you eating well? Are you eating not only sugary and high carbohydrate meals so that your blood sugars go up and down and can't feed the mitochondria in a good way? Or are you actually not eating enough? This is problem as well. So that can be seen in functional testing. And the other parts are like your oils. The oil needs to be there for the engine. It has to have good tire pressure, so we need oxygen for the mitochondria to work. We have other parts, the electrical parts or the exhaust pipe is also very important, and that is the same for us, the detoxification. We need oxygen. We need also to protect ourselves, like the car needs to be protected from rust, so we need to protect our system with antioxidants.
Yeah, it's a really good analogy, actually. And I guess too, I really like that. Often I use a similar kind of analogy with my own clients, but it's also without the information, we can't form a treatment plan and help people to become well. So the information is gathered from screening tools, and like I mentioned at the beginning, I don't do a lot of functional testing. I do some hair tissue mineral analysis, and I also do live blood screening, which is really fascinating for me. They're not diagnostic, whereas some of the functional testing actually is more diagnostic, isn't it? So do you want to talk a little bit about functional testing that you do, and why you use it and what it's for and how it helps you keep the motor running?
Yeah, so functional testing is really black and white. It's science. So this is what people quite like when they come in, and you can tell them, look, this is really scientific. It's being sent. Most of these tests take place in the States or in Australia, so there are really good labs behind them. So the science is behind them, and the quality is very good and comes really quite very accurate back. So one of the tests which I quite like is the organic acid test, and that's one of those, what I've just mentioned, a warrant of fitness, because it will tell us how's the mitochondria working, how's your blood sugar working, etc.
Yeah.
But as you said as well, you're using the hair mineral analysis. I find hair mineral analysis quite valuable for detecting some heavy metals.
Yeah.
Which
yeah,
can
very
build
much so.
up.
Yeah. So the organic acids test, how is that conducted? How do we do that?
Urine test. It's very simple. Yeah, you need to stop some of the supplements for 48, well, actually all supplements for 48 hours. There's certain foods you're not allowed to eat because they can actually have an interference with the organic acids. Organic acids are the byproduct, which is eliminated through the urine. They are measured and can then be converted into a report where we then can exactly see which parts of the body need some help. It's not quite straightforward that you can just go through and say, oh, this section, this section, this section. A lot of the organic acids are actually interconnected with each other, and so the report needs to be analysed by one of us naturopaths who know what's going on.
I've learned something today myself. The other thing you were talking a bit about was food allergies. Do you do food allergy testing?
Yes, I do. We have got quite a few different companies who are offering food allergies. There can be just a blood spot, so you prick your hand and need to put it on paper.
Okay.
And it comes quite good back with a good 1, 2, 3, 4 different levels of different allergies or intolerances more you can have.
Yeah.
Then we have the more deeper ones. So give you a little bit more information, which would you would have to go to a lab though. In Wellington, we have one lab where you go and they draw the blood, and that will be sent directly to the supplier who is sending it, who's forwarding it to the States, or as I said, Australia.
Right.
And they are a little bit more comprehensive. They go into IgEs, which is the immediate reaction of allergies, or IgGs, the intolerances. They also measure the complements, which is quite interesting, because complements can actually increase the inflammation from food allergies.
Yes, so there's probably a whole other conversation to be had around food allergy testing, really, eh? So one of the things that we're going to be uploading alongside this Nat Chat is a webinar or a little from FX Med, who is one of our suppliers who sponsors the Naturopaths and Medical Herbalists of New Zealand. And they've put together a webinar that is going to be really easy to understand for people that are not familiar with the terminology, and also for practitioners who perhaps want to learn a little more. So that's going to be uploaded alongside all the rest of our conversation. So that'll actually clarify a little bit on what Friederike's been talking about as well. They're also going to discuss a little bit about a GI function test and another test called the Dutch test. So you're familiar with these, Friederike. Do you want to just give us a bit of an explanation on both of those?
Yeah, one of my really absolute favorites is the Dutch test. So it has nothing to do with Holland. I have to always being German and growing up in Holland, sometimes people think, why does she call it Dutch? But it's just called Dutch, and it's a hormone test, and it gives you incredible lots of information about your adrenal glands, your stress levels, and especially how which pathway your hormones going. So especially like estrogen pathways are quite important. We have some going in the right pathway and are beneficial, but we have two, which can, one of them can be DNA damaging and the other one is not very good either. And if a person has those pathways, or their hormones going through those pathways, that can cause problems,
Right. Yep.
periods or breast or which, and even, you know, male have estrogen, so we need to be aware that it affects females as well as males. And it also looks at testosterone, progesterone levels and which pathways they are going. We can read a lot out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course the adrenals is a classical, is that often when somebody can come fatigued into the clinic, you do the Dutch test and you think your adrenals won't be working anymore. Well, it's actually the opposite, that they're so stressed that they feel fatigued, but you actually need a lot of calming rather than increasing your adrenal glands. So that is fabulous to see from an integrated testing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the adrenal conversation is another one as well, because, you know, there's this whole sort of concept of burnout, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. And it's not that the adrenal glands are giving up, they're just having to overwork, and the body's just not coping. So it's starting to work in ways that we really don't want it to work. And you've got to look at how you can nourish that. And it's good to rule out. And the thing with testing is that it enables us to rule out and rule in anything, so we can direct our treatment plans down that pathway. And I find with the live blood screening, which is literally just a look at the red blood cells, it can often explain why when you go and get a blood test, they're coming back relatively normal, but actually this is what is the body's actually doing with this information, and it's not working in the way that it needs to. And the other interesting thing about a lot of what we do with screening tools and testing is looking at the gut. So, you know, gut function stuff has become
just
huge.
one point, Deborah, the Dutch test I find also, just to mention, is very useful if you have issues getting pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
So for fertility, it's fabulous. You can actually do a whole cycle. You take your urine every day, and it comes back with a real nice chart on how your fertility cycle is, and if you are actually ovulating or not, which is, I think, a very useful tool for any naturopath.
Yeah, it's certainly a really comprehensive test, and I think often one that, you know, for many people, it's probably, if you had to pick one around some of the stuff, it would be the one to do for a lot of women. Have you got any other comments you want to throw in for fun, or is that
just the gut one? So coming back to the gut, we have different gut tests. So we can do simple tests with just parasitology tests to see if there is anything growing in your gut. I do recommend you do always a 3-day one, because you don't know exactly, sometimes they're in the cycle, those parasites, if they are just growing or not. But the creme de la creme, and FX Med will put that in their presentation, is the GI 360, which is really fantastic. You can see bacterial infections, you can see virus, parasites. It's just incredibly comprehensive, but also you can see if you're actually producing your enzymes, if you're actually chewing well. You know, we need to chew well.
Reminding people to chew.
Yeah, so it will not cheat you, so it will come back and show you things aren't that fabulous. You can do a little bit of improvement in that area. But it also shows you how your microbiome is. So your whole microbiome in your gut, is it beneficial? That there are actually beneficial bacteria in there, microbiome, or is it that the bad guys are taking over? So it's a very nice tool to see again, where do I need to start working? Are you maybe missing some fiber or some enzymes? How high is your inflammation? So yeah, again, it's an incredible tool to actually for us to help us to find the obstacles and help to treat the patient and the person to find the way to get better in a quick way.
And I'd also just like to add, I know you mentioned at the beginning that they can be quite pricey. I think the thing to remember is, like you say, you get your car serviced, you put petrol in it, you put oil in it, you replace the tyres. We seem to think that our bodies are just going to carry on doing whatever we want for as long as we want. And then we wonder why suddenly we wake up with some terminal illness, or a seemingly fit person suddenly has, you know, a heart condition or a stroke. And I just want to remind people that it's actually important to look after your body. Body maintenance 101. So, you know, an annual checkup, whether you go to your GP or whether you go to a naturopath or whether you do both. And I encourage people to do both. I think it's really important to get a medical perspective and then come and talk about how that lifestyle stuff can affect us. And some of this comprehensive testing is not done by GPs. A lot of the testing done through your GP is just the standard testing that's available through the labs. And so these tests are actually outside of that scope. And certainly FX Med, who are putting on the webinar, have probably one of the most comprehensive ranges of testing. I think that they certainly are by far and away the leader in testing from this perspective. There are a couple of other companies that offer a range of other tests. So it's a matter of kind of speaking to your practitioner and asking what direction you think you need to take. And certainly what will, at the end of this recording, there'll be a link to Friederike's webinar, Friederike's website, and to my website. So feel free to you know, pop some questions through. So we're going to be posting all of these on Facebook, and they'll be able to be shared through the practitioners. So I'd just like to say thanks, Friederike. Just hang on the phone there for a bit once I've finished doing the recording. And, you know, like I said to the people watching, hopefully you've enjoyed our little Nat Chat so far. We've got one more to come, and then we're done for the week. So this is all part of Naturopathic Medicines Week, put on by Naturopaths and Medical Herbalists of New Zealand. And that's our registration body. As naturopaths, we register with them, and we are entrusted to keep our education and our upskilling going. And it also means that it's really important to see a registered naturopath. When you go to a naturopath, make sure that they're registered with the NMHNZ. So I'm just going to say farewell to everybody now. Hang in there for a bit. Let me just sort this out. Here we go. So thanks very much, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Thank you.